Hello again, beloveds. Today is such a wondrous, potent, alchemical portal for myself and my family. Today, 13 years ago, on the 3rd of April, 2013, 3 years after my 3-day coma from 3 organs failing, assisted by 3 angels in my near-death experience, my son was born. Today, he turns 13. It has been such a juicy, emotive day. I felt the call to speak with you and be present as when I decided to come back to this channel. I wanted to do it intuitively. I wanted to do it authentically. I wanted to do it without a script. I am a medicinal storyteller. That is my gift. That is where my oracle teachings and my wisdom like to shine. And today is really beyond translation, as I'm still so deeply in the raw emotion of what has occurred. When this child was only 3 years old, I had known he was an intuitive like me when he was in the womb. He incarnated it to a very difficult situation with my health, with my former partner. And yet when I felt his spirit, I knew I was carrying a galactic child that was starborn, that had my gifts and had them in ways that could radically go beyond my own if they were nurtured. And I accepted that role with great humility, as I knew that similarly bold and brave soul had chosen me. And if you recall, during my NDE, I was guided back to the body by 2 lights that did not speak. They did not communicate in telepathy as the angels and the light of creation did. They were simply there. One of these lights was a bright indigo. And at 3, this beautiful child looked at me in the middle of a story and completely paused me. He said, "Thank you for choosing me in the stars. I was the blue one." Today, I wore blue to honor that, to honor him. My book is coming out on the 13th to honor this year, the year he is 13, and also the year he incarnated and was born. When I was a child, my experience was so lonely. I was so radically different from my family of origin. And I prayed with every ounce of my heart for someone like me to enter our system. It didn't happen. And as a child, I thought my prayers went unheard, yet they were not. He came through me, which is the most ineffable honor. So today, I want to honor that beautiful child and the gift he's been in my life. Moreover, when he was born, it was the portal of Easter, or Ostara. And as I was taking a medicine walk this evening after our birthday celebrations culminated, some information came through, and it's going to be repeat for some of you, yet I feel spirit was communicating it in such a way, and the 3s are just so alive right now. 3 is also one of the numbers of my particular life path, and so I just feel really called to honor that. Yeshua was, according to the traditions, gone for 3 days when he returned as well. And there's so many interpretations of that, whether you see it from a traditional Christian perspective, or if you see it from a more Gnostic perspective, which is how I choose to receive it. 3s are significant. They're significant to a cycle of life and death, and I want to honor that. At its core, Ostara was a feminine portal. The church has a lot of deep history in inversion of other paths. I'm not saying that's good or bad. That's for your discernment. Yet I want to honor the etiology of this portal. So if we feel into Ostara, it really comes from the goddess traditions. It literally means rebirth, dawn. It is a time where life is becoming fertile again, potent again. And so, again, you have the birth of a term that literally becomes a holiday, and the church removes the etiology of who really gave that energy, which is the name of Ostara. They transform it into Easter. And there's a long history of this, which you all really know. I channeled some notes I'm going to loosely look at if I'm able to read them. And that's always the trick with my channeling, because I write so fast and some of it's in light language and some of it's in words, and it's like chicken scratch. Yet what they were really saying is that this portal is about death and resurrection as a whole, not one particular avatar. Now, I say that with deep respect because Yeshua is one of the predominant guides I've been working with as of late. Yet I see Yeshua much differently than the Jesus that I grew up with in my Catholic upbringing. That's personal for me. I call you to always discern how you receive information. Take what I say. If it resonates, great. If it doesn't, chuck it in the bucket. All good. Never going to offend me. I want you to do you 110% and then some. So basically, what Spirit was communicating as I was taking this walk and really appreciating the energies of the equinox, new life, we had this beautiful sunset over the Pacific this evening, and it was really beautiful because the full moonlight was still there, and it's just like illuminated by Luna herself. And so as I'm walking at that transitional liminal space between the sunset and the moonrise, there was this message, this like overwhelming message of we die. We actively die and die and die again during this earth walk. But do we stay in that frequency of death, or do we choose to rise? That is the invitation. That's what avatars like Jesus or Yeshua chose to do. That's how they illuminate us. That's how they inspire. That's how many avatars have inspired throughout all space and time. And the Gnostics understood this. They understood that Yeshua wasn't saving you from death. It wasn't the way we've been taught in organized religion. The real notion here is that the Gnostics understood that there was a force or an entity, or you may say fallen angelics, known as the archons. And this energy was maladaptive. This energy did not, in the act of creation, inherit the vital life force of creation. Humans did. And because humans had it, they were hungry for it. And so they manipulated and they hijacked and they continue to, whatever you might call them. Some would be more comfortable with demons. Some would just say negative thoughts and feelings. You do you. Again, that is language. We get way too caught up in language. I'm talking about the energy here. There's a maladaptive, dark energy that lacks its own life force. And so it feeds off that which contains this creator light. Okay. At our core, before there was a fall, which, if we go deep into the Gnostics and other interdimensional knowings, was when the archonic forces were able to penetrate humanity. Yet I digress. There's so much wonderful information on that. And if you want to go deep, I highly recommend the Gnostic Bibles, many different translations. But if you don't like to read, because it's overwhelming how much you can read from these texts, Amazon has access where you can watch 25 episodes on the Gnostics for free if you sign up for a trial on the Gnostic Bibles. Highly recommend if you're dorky like me and you like to deep dive. So again, total digression there, but it's important if you'd like to do something cool this weekend that honors the portal. And so again, Jesus is really saying there are these dark forces and they will sabotage you and they will corrode you, which is why so many traditions have this period of like 40 days and you go through this initiation and there's all these temptations and there's all of this archonic force, and yet you rise above it. And so Yeshua, as I know him in the inner planes, is really saying you resurrect your soul from this darkness, and that you carry that light within you, that you may do it. I consistently still get this message from Yeshua and Magdalene, as well as Mother Mary in the non-religious capacity as she reveals herself to me in the inner planes. Okay. And shamans always understood this. If you look across all different types of indigenous cultures, they understood that you were going to descend into the lower world or the underworld, or really Persephone's place. You're going to go deep down into Hades. You're going to get dismembered, and attacked by spirits. That is part of the initiation. It is part of the journey. My near-death experience made this so clear. I experienced the light, and then I came back and went straight down into the underworld. And I was so open and so porous, and everything's coming in. And it was so easy to get contaminated and hijacked and really just torn apart if you weren't staying in your sovereignty by these maladaptive forces. And for purposes of this download, we're going to call them archonic, but again, feel free to call them whatever you'd like. But you then reclaim your power and you are resurrected from that. You are remade. And because of this capacity, you are now able to walk between worlds. You are able to understand duality without falling prey to it. This is super, super, super important. And if you go into the Gnostic texts deep at any point, you'll see how over and over again Christ says that the answer is within you. The answer is within you, and that you can overcome that in this lifetime, in the holy sacred temple of the body. Okay. And again, many of you know this path. Many of you have walked this path. Sometimes we get stuck in the underworld and we don't understand that that's what we're doing, yet you still have this innate capacity to resurrect, to reclaim, to recalibrate, to resurface, to re-embody, and to re-author. So many R's, but I love alliteration. And so your offering or your invitation from these underworld spaces is to resurrect your life. My citrine likes when I say that. You're resurrecting your life, but at the core of all light, that sacred heart of illumination is light itself, because you are a being of light. Like Christ, like all avatars, we contain that divine spark within us. I am not saying that we are gods, okay? But I am saying we contain the fractal of a God spark in us, each and every person. Most people have been too extinguished by life circumstance, trauma, and false programs, which is a large part of why I'm transmitting this message now. And I really do want to follow the way it came through. I don't normally look at notes, but this time they were really clear. So I just want to say here that they took something important. And when I say they, I really mean power structures, because this isn't specific to just one system. It was repeated throughout history over and over and over again. But they took an initiation, they took something quite sacred and organic to our soul's evolution, and they inverted it. And you see inversion over and over and over in how they took away our organic power. And so they took the ideas of death and resurrection and they externalized it. Okay. That then means you have to give it to a saver. You have to say it was only them. It can't be for you. That's an important narrative shift, because now you've taken an archetypal journey that is innate to our way of evolving our lived experience of re-illuminate, reclaiming, resurrecting our divine spark, our divine light, our Christ consciousness within. And now you're saying you can only get it from outside. That's extremely, extremely disempowering, and it was consciously done. So your divine sovereignty is then stripped away by the notion that it is outside of you. That doesn't mean that you can't honor and believe in those paths. There's great beauty in some of these paths. I was a devoted Catholic in my early childhood. It wasn't until I was about 7 and organically understood that what I was being told in parochial school did not track, that the way people behaved was in direct, overt disagreement to what they were teaching, and that everything kept being blamed on the feminine and a snake. It didn't make sense to 7-year-old me. I was a very shy child. I did not like to speak up. I got kicked out of religion class at the tender age of 7 for asking a question. That continued throughout my lifespan in parochial school, which I survived through until I was 18 years old. But even as a child, even though I was deeply connected to Christ, I had a huge affinity towards Mother Mary, which remains. I couldn't get down with that. I knew something was off for me. But again, you take what resonates for you. But if we look at the symbols of this Ostara portal, the eggs, the hare or the rabbit, and also the dawn, the light returning itself, this all comes from goddess culture. They actively buried goddess culture. They took pagan symbols and they rebranded it all. This is really important for our knowing. They took this narrative and flipped it so that you would not know that you contained this medicine, this alchemical power within you. That's extremely important because we talk about Christ consciousness so often now, and a lot of people accept the biblical. And when I say biblical, I mean the predominant Bible, the one that you find in every hotel room, but they're not looking at the totality. There's so much that the Gnostics do agree in and that they don't agree in. And it's very interesting if you look across the text because there's such a direct correlation to what comes through interdimensional guides, particularly those that are coming from the 12D, where you have stargates and systems, where many of my teams are from, where my oversoul is from, where there's absolute unity with the divine. They tend to see this very differently. They don't separate. It's just not going to happen because all is truly one in this space. Even from their perspective, your soul and your oversoul would be a unified energy field. And so the important part here with this portal that I really want you to lean into in the next few days, because whether you believe in any of this or whether any of it resonates or not, we are in the energy of spring. We are in the astrological new year. There is so much potent energy right now that is asking you to reclaim and revitalize your life. And quite often, the only way to completely step into your sovereign power is to completely allow the old to die, to decay. Decay is necessity for new life to grow. And that's really the energy of this portal. When I was told immediately following coma that my organs had been too desecrated, that my feminine body at the age of 29 was so damaged beyond repair, it would never birth children organically. They told me, and that was in no uncertain terms, you will never have children. I believed them then. I didn't necessarily want children then. I was very devoted to my academia still. And yet life surprised me. Life came through me. And when I felt that life, it was the first of what I was still holding on to. And if I'm honest, which I am to a fault, I was clinging on to it. I didn't want it to die. I didn't want it to dissolve. I still wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to be that old person because it was easier than going into the abyss. It was easier than really letting her die. And so I invite you during this beautiful, auspicious portal, which blessed me with one of the greatest soul family gifts. I have had such the privilege and the honor to birth a member of my own soul family. And I've got to witness him grow up as a young way shower, growing out and growing up consciously outside of a traditional system. He's not been indoctrinated. He has not gone to traditional school. He has not been taught the ways of the old paradigm. I have been very cognizant that a new world was being born throughout all of this. And I knew that some of us were here to help anchor that, to help midwife it. If you are listening to this message, if you are here on this small, consciously intimate channel, then you, my dear one, are one of those way showers. My words, my energy, my being would not likely resonate with you if your soul wasn't here to do that hard and holy work. So, on behalf of us all, as I do believe we are one, your light work is my light work. My light work is your light work. The giving is the receiving is the giving. We are doing this in service to the one that goes by many names and none at all. And during my NDE, I was shown these beautiful hands emitting, and they were unified, but they were unified by the vibration coming out. They were surrounding the earth, or Gaia Sophia, and she was emanating a citrine light that I have only ever seen depicted in the inner realms around the avatars, such as Yeshua, Mother Mary, Magdalene, Buddha, Krishna, avatars of that light. It was the same frequency that we were emitting and we were holding for that earth. And so I invite you to allow whatever needs to die in this beautiful 3-day portal, and allow what is sovereign to you, what is alchemical to you, what is restorative to you, what resurrects the light in you. Honor that light and let go under the 3-day portal that follows a full moon, because full moon energies do continue for 3 days after the summation of the moon, to release what needs to go. And if, my friends, you celebrate either Ostara or Easter, I wish you the absolute holiest of holy days. And I honor the sacrifices and choices made by avatars like Yeshua in service to the light. It is such an honor to be here during this highly potent evolutionary time in our humanity, sharing space with you. As a doula of both life and death, it was an honor to share this space and these energies as they were transmuted through the one and creation tonight. So with that, enjoy your evening. I love you so much, and I look forward to connecting as called, intuitively, and unscripted. Again, thank you for being here. I wish you the highest and best expression of this weekend. See you soon. Bye.